Hey, this is Devin Rose. Wanted to share with you um, who St. Thomas Aquinas was and some of the highlights from his life, especially as I've encountered him over the years. So St. Thomas Aquinas was an Italian saint and doctor of the church. He lived in the 1200s. His parents did not want him to enter the Dominican order, so they eventually imprisoned him for a year. And when they couldn't break his will, they sent a prostitute in to seduce him to try to ruin his vocation to the priesthood. But he actually drove the prostitute away with a burning iron from the fireplace. And then angels came to assist him. More on that later. He escaped, and then he did enter the order of preachers, the Dominicans. So St. Thomas was the most brilliant scholar who ever lived. That's what I say. This happened in the 1200s, which secular people call the Dark Ages, the so-called Dark Ages. Yet really this was the glory of Christendom. We've not equaled this time in scholarship, nor in architecture, nor, I would argue, in faith. So whenever you hear someone say Dark Ages, it's because they are dark and they don't actually know what real Dark Ages are. So his landmark work is called the Summa Theologica. And what's funny is he wrote this for beginning students. Yet now, typically only advanced students in theology, political science, philosophy read it. Matter of fact, a friend of mine who's a PhD professor in political philosophy at a university, he actually went to England as a visiting scholar for a year to, one of their prestigious colleges, and spent a full year with a master studying the Summa. And yet St. Thomas wrote it in the 1200s for beginning students. That shows you how much we've diminished in our scholastic achievement. That said, I recommend reading the Summa just a bit at a time. The concepts he presents so logically that most Catholics can understand them, at least in part. It's true that some of the language he uses and words are very technical and precise in meaning, and that will escape us who are not, have deep study in what these words mean philosophically. But you can understand a lot of it, so it's okay. I also like, as something that's very approachable, Louis de Wohl's historical fiction book, The Quiet Light. So Louis de Wohl wrote a number of historical fiction books about the saints. I've probably read, I don't know, 8 of them or 10 of them. St. Benedict and St. Catherine of Siena and St. Ignatius of Loyola. It really brings to life his life, St. Thomas Aquinas. And it helps you kind of get to know him more, even of course it is fiction. So a lot of it is, interpolated and made up. So St. Thomas, because of his great learning, and he was a professor, he became the patron saint of students and universities. And I really like this prayer that he had composed. I won't read the whole thing. You could just read St. Thomas Aquinas' prayer before study, it'll be called. But he asks God to beam thy radiance upon the darkness of my mind and dispel the double darkness of sin and ignorance into which I've been born. Order the beginning, direct the progress, perfect the achievement of my work. It's a brilliant prayer, and this is just one translation. There's others too. So students really turn to him in their before exams and while they're in school. He also is turned to for purity. And there's actually a confraternity that was started called the Angelic Warfare Confraternity of people wanting to grow in purity that he is the patron of. Well, if that wasn't enough, right? He's teaching brilliant things. He's refuting heretics, of which there were many in the 1200s. He also ended up composing 5 of the greatest hymns in the church. And you have heard many of these hymns, including the Pange Lingua, the Tantum Ergo, Panis Angelicus. This particular site has different people who are singing these songs, including Andre Bocelli and This must be daughters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist, maybe. So he was so incredibly gifted, right, that it boggles imagination. He is known as the angelic doctor, part because of the sublimity of his thought, so high up like the angels, but also because those angels came to assist him when he sent the prostitute away that his parents sent to seduce him. So how can you get closer to him? Learn about St. Thomas Aquinas in these ways. I also have a novena website and a mobile app for praying novenas, and have an excellent novena to St. Thomas Aquinas that I myself have prayed before. It's a 9-day novena, and you can pray this for any intention, but especially prayed by students. So I'll have a link below for if you want to check that out. All right, St. Thomas Aquinas, get to know him. God bless.